this planet Earth. Anything less than that is wrong. The COPUSA would like to send our condolences to the family of Mr. George Floyd and all families in America who have been victims of injustice and police brutality. For over 400 years, Blacks in America have suffered. And as a church, we fully understand and acknowledge that it is not right. We are glad that the young generation in our churches are pointing out, together with the world, that enough is enough. What happened to George Floyd, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, and many others were done as a result of hatred. The Bible condemns it. The church does not support it. It is sinful and cannot be tolerated in the body of Christ. Personally, I believe that something can be done to change what is happening in the nation. God has brought us into this country for a reason. And that's why we have created this platform, to hear the voice of our young people and to brainstorm together how we can transform the society in which we live in. We understand that the racial injustice that is being experienced can affect our young children in so many negative ways. Many are suffering emotionally, psychologically, physically, and even spiritually. And I encourage all who may need counsel to contact our national council. I encourage all who may need counseling to contact our National Counseling Unit team with the phone number 973-925-4106, 973-925-4106, or either their representatives at the regional level. We acknowledge that this injustice knows no age, it knows no background. In reality, the police will never stop to ask whether you are a Ghanaian, you are Nigerian, Ivorian, etc. Just as Martin Luther King once said, we all came in on a different ships, but we are all in the same boat now. For this reason, we have created this forum on the district, regional, and national level. Our aim is to hear the voices, brainstorm ideas, and find good solutions.
My earbuds.
I want to commend the young ones for your proactiveness on this particular issue.
Hey.
Based on all that we will brainstorm here tonight and on the other platforms, we all come to see that there are so many ways we can effectively have our voices heard as believers. After this meeting, among other things, the church will educate the older generation of the church on the realities that we face as Blacks living in America. Though many of them are immigrants, they must come to learn and understand these challenges. I continue to encourage you all to share your opinions, views, and solutions so that the church can find the appropriate means to handle this long-standing racial injustice that has become our reality. I want to personally apologize for the apparent silence in injustice matters and all the matters that are in one way or the other affecting this generation. COPUSA has come a long way. Bear with us and know that in recent times, things have changed and will continue to make things better. We want you to know that your contribution are extremely important to us. After this conversation, the church will gather all the ideas. We would approach this situation in a godly manner, both short and long term. By this statement, we are declaring this Friday, that is June 5th through June 7th, National Prayer and Fasting Day for God's peace and protection over the land of USA. And on this note, I declare this forum open in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God bless you, Apostle Michael Amwako Ajiman. So I believe that what I have read says it all. It says it trying to relate to what is going on in the nation. Like Apostle said, we do understand, we feel your pain and your anger and your anguish. And we have created this forum that you can express your feelings and your concern in a very cordial way. And we want to hear from everybody who is on the platform. And together, we can find a solution to the ongoing social justice and social unrest in the United States of America. So I expect everybody to feel free and share your idea in a very cordial, very friendly, very Christian way, so that together we can uplift not only the church, but also the nation of the United States of America. God bless you. So Dr. Carr, I'm done. Over to you.
God bless you, Apostle Ofori. We thank you for that remarks, and we thank our national head for his gracious words. Before we set the ball rolling, we also want to have Pastor Mike give us a quick remark to kind of set the expectations of what this whole dialogue would be about. And so please let's welcome Pastor Dr. Mike Potiphar, even as he gives us a quick remark. Please go ahead, Pastor Mike.
Praise the Lord, everyone.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Speaking more to the youth and Pensa, let me shout out our slogan, Christ in you.
The hope of glory.
The hope and glory.
Let's know that you are there. Christ in you.
The hope of glory.
The hope of glory.
Good.
The hope of glory.
Rise
and
shine.
Good.
Remember thy Creator now.
Be quick.
Now. The hope of glory.
On behalf of the Youth and Pensa Ministry, we want to express our profound gratitude to our national head, Apostle Michael Ajiman Amwako, and the entire executive of the Church of Pentecost USA for their support, their fatherly guidance, and this ministry listening ear in all matters that concern us. Express our profound appreciation for creating the platform for us to dialogue. I'd like to say that this is a sign of how open and how gracious the leadership that we have are, fathers and mothers who we can go to and we can dialogue with. The issue at stake is definitely one of the most important we can discuss in this season, given the loss of a precious life. George Floyd, our own brother on this planet Earth. In fact, one thing stands to be true, that the consistent occurrences of injustices with racism being at the center has become a cancer in this society. We know that this is deeply rooted and it is generational. But just as we cannot resolve a medical situation that needs surgery with an over-the-counter medication, so are we not gathered to say that young people, we are here to provide all the answers and solutions to the concerns that we have. But this conversation that has been initiated by our fathers is indeed a very powerful gesture that gets us going when it comes to informative and helpful dialogue on understanding the cultural issues of our time and providing support for the young people of our generation. So the conversation has started, even if late. In fact, my little boy of 6, being the only Black boy in his class, is already expressing vivid signs of experiencing unfair treatment. And I say this to say one thing: our parents and leadership do care about us. They do care about us. They do care about the danger we face as Black people growing up in a country where a police officer can ignore the law and take life out of a fellow human being. No parent, none of our immigrant parents will be happy to see their son, whether 25-year-old or 46-year-old, die at the hands of ruthless police force. Let me establish this. Our fathers and our do care for us. And we see evidence of that also from the statement made by our able national head. As we speak, one thing stands out in our own kind of situation, and I'm wrapping up here. We are dealing with parents who are having to handle multiple cultural struggles. Our parents are largely Africans. They are in America. They're trying to figure out how to survive and how to understand the historic implications of things and how things unfold in this country. The average African may not be able to fully understand the African American theology. So you would realize that the way our parents respond to issues of race and social injustice might probably be a little bit different from what your expectations are, given that you were born in this country and you have a better understanding of how the system functions and the pain that some of our brothers and sisters who are African Americans go through. So there is the generational gap, and there is also the cultural struggle. I say this to give us an opportunity as young people to begin to empathize with our parents and our fathers, knowing that they are trying to understand the system. If you are well-formed and grown over 40 years, 50 years, it's not easy to assimilate or acculturate into a new culture. So as we struggle with these cultural issues, you will see differences in how responses come to issues that pop up in our society. And I'd like to ask all of us, young men and young women, to bear with us, to have patience on us, to exercise a lot of caution and empathy as together we navigate this road. And we are going to make it. The conversation has begun. We want to learn from you. We want to learn from you. And I believe that as we travel this road together with the initiatives being taken by our National Executive Committee of the Church and with the active engagement of the Youth and Pensa Ministry, we shall bridge our generational gaps. We will listen to you. We will work with you. We will understand more and more the real challenges that we face in corporate America, on our campuses, on our schools, and we'll dialogue with all of us in order to give us, to receive that grace, wisdom, and strength to go through all of the challenges that we have to deal with. Lastly, speak up. Speak up in this session. And after this session, continue to speak up. We want to engage our society and engage our culture. In fact, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. So let's speak up. And I believe the Lord will help us and we'll find solutions to the problems we all face. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pastor Dr. Potiphar. And I like that last statement. Speak up, speak up. And we thank God for the privilege for us to be able to do that. All right, so we would want to set the ball rolling. Just in case you joined us, the discussion for today is racism and social injustice, the believer and the response of the church. Racism and social injustice, the believer and the response of the church. I believe as I was doing the introduction, I just got a text here. One of our panelists, please forgive me for that. We have a dynamic young man who is also part of this panelist. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our own elder, Kofi Owusu Boakye. Elder Boakye is an international development economist. And so he's vested in dealing with all kinds of races, cultures, and diversity in general. And so we want to throw to him this first question. I think it's a good segue from where Pastor Mike ended, explaining the challenges that our parents who are predominantly African descent are struggling, if you will, to assimilate and understand the struggle of the actual Black African-American culture or the average African American person here. And sometimes it's not that they don't care, it's not that they don't love us, but it is a challenge and an evolving, if you will, process that they're going through. So Elder Kofi, if you want to help us kind of buttress the point that Pastor Mike was making, what would you say to someone who says that they are African, and for that matter, they are not affected by all these that are going on around us? What would be your approach to that person to get them to understand the plight of the Black life in America?
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I also want to very much appreciate that strong statements from our national and from our father. I think gratifying to hear that our head is on in terms of the fact that
over, nobody's going to care what type of Black person you are. I'm hoping that this conversation that we're having today, a conversation that will speak to our fathers and to our mothers on the line as well, because these comments tend to come from them. And I think maybe let me paraphrase it this way. You know, every single one of us, if you came here or if your parents came here as an immigrant or on a visa, then you are a beneficiary of the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965. And this afternoon, I actually pulled up the statistical census data for 1960. There were laws put on the books in 1924, which effectively banned any opportunity, practically, for people who were not from Western Europe or Northern Europe to come and get visas to come to the US. And it took people that struggled, people that got killed, people that protested to get civil rights legislation on the books in 1964. The Civil Rights Act came on the books in 1964. The Voting Rights Act came on the books in 1964. And in that same spirit of getting America to live up to the ideals it has stated on paper in its constitution, we came with the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965, which was the basis from which we all were able to get access to this country. Now, to say that I'm African and I'm not African American, so this has nothing to do with me. One, let us agree that it is un-Christian. That statement on its face is un-Christian. To say that, yes, this is my neighbor's house, it's on fire, let it stay on fire, it has nothing to do with me. So let's begin with that as Christians, that as children of God, we have an obligation to do and to look for the good of our brothers and our neighbors. Do unto others as we would like to be done unto us, number one. And number two, as I've just stated, people, African Americans, the Black American church, fought and died so that you and I could have the opportunity to have lives transformed the way we've had our lives transformed through immigration to this country. And so America, from our constitutional basis, the people that wrote that all lives are created equal, they own slaves. Mm-hmm. So we have to accept that from the very beginning, this country has been an experiment in perfection. Every generation has had the obligation to improve upon it. Others were lynched. Others were beat up at the bus counters. Others were told to sit in the back of the bus. Our generation has the obligation to ensure that the dignity of humanity that God has put in all of us, our national head talked about this in his statement, that we all have the dignity of being created in the image of God. And so we have an obligation to ensure that not only for ourselves, but for our children, that America will live up to its obligations. And it is our time to protest, it is our time to stand up, and it's our time to make a difference. So believe me, there's no such thing as other people's problem. It's our problem, and it is our generational fight to fight. So I'll end with those introductory remarks hopefully I'll get the opportunity to expand on it later. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. God bless you, Elder. Mrs. Bonsu, I think this is be a good area that you can add a bit to it. Being an African American in this area where some of us think that, well, maybe, you know, I'm a Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian, you know, in 15, 20 years, I'm going to go back home and, you know, this is just a transition thing for me. If you were to be talking to such a person, what are some of the experiences that you can advise and have the person's consciousness change, that we all in this thing together? Mrs. Bones, if you can throw some light on that as well.
Hi, this is Mrs. Bonsu. Thank you so much for that question. I will have to say to my brothers and sisters who are from Africa, basically that regardless if you feel like it applies to you or not, this is what we're trying to get the oppressors to understand, that though you may have had a different outlook on African Americans yourself because of maybe the oppression you felt from an African American, it's important to understand that unity is most important right now in this situation. That's what we're trying to get our oppressors to understand, and that's what we have to get each other to understand, that right now we don't need the division of our own opinions. We have to understand that if you are in a position where a cop is looking at you and they all they see is Black at that moment, they're not trying to figure out where you come from, they're not trying to figure out what your name is, and you know, if you are African, if you're from here or not. What they want, what they see is our skin color, and we have to understand that that is why we're trying to get people to understand why violence is not the answer just because we're Black, and that's why people are getting killed. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much. I think it's important that we all realize that we are all in this together. As a matter of fact, even if we were white or Hispanic or Caucasian, we should be concerned with what's going on. And so it's more important that the fact that we are even Black, this should concern us the most. So thank you so much, Mrs. Bonsu. Okay, we're running through the questions that are coming here. The next one goes to Pastor Dr. Berima. I want to combine this if I can. There is this premise that the notion that we are being called Black seem to put us at a risk, using that term loosely, for racism. In other words, you know, if you are Black, then somebody is white, then that person is much more advanced than you are. Now, you are in the military, one of the most diverse institutions in this country. How would you address a young man who has this premise in his mind and help him stay positive? In other words, whether you are being referred as any other name, the N-word, what have you, and even Black, what would you advise this young person to stay positive, even in this environment that we find ourselves in?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Carl, for the question. What I want to say is that this is the deeper issue. This is the main question, because the problem that we're dealing with, even though the murder as well as the protest after George Floyd was murdered has precipitated a lot of issue, it goes to our identity. It goes to who you are and how you see yourself. I will admit that even though I came to this country late, in my late 20s, I've also experienced, I've been to so many conferences, both within and outside the army, that I'm the only one of my color. It's nothing to be proud of. But what it is that I've been a victim where people see past you, where you go to a place and you feel lonely. You feel that there's no one to relate with your kind of experiences, which makes you unique. But what I keep telling myself, that I don't define myself by any other person's opinion. And the verse that Apostle Ajimamako read to us from Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 says, let us create mankind, in the image of God. So we have to, every young person, every young lady, no matter your color, you must come to accept that you are also in the image of God. And you have been endowed with every ability any other race has. But I personally see the challenge that we've been thrown with symbolism, we've been thrown with slogans. So we don't really get to deal with the deeper issue of who are we. So anyone feeling discouraged, feeling despised, feeling not recognized, I want to tell you that the cure starts with you knowing who you are. And every opportunity that you
I think we've lost a signal.
I think we've lost a signal there. That's okay. We will try to fix that. I remember Doctor is way back in Hawaii, and so that must be expected, but I'm sure he'll get back to us. So I think then I would kind of pass it on to Apostle Ofori to kind of wrap that up for us in that same vein. As Christians, the word of God is what actually keeps us going. You know, Scripture says, let all men be lies and God be true. And whatever God says concerning us as Christians is what we believe, and it's said and it's settled, period. If a young man in that same category where he feels that his skin color is making him feel inferior because everybody makes him feel that way, what are some of the scriptural verses, if you will, or the word of God that he can actually really let it sink within his spirit so that as he walks around and navigate through his destiny, he will not feel inferior? If there's any of those that kind of, you know, interest you, that you yourself perhaps have, you know, used to encourage you.
Right. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, I think this quote was said by Eleanor Roosevelt. He said that don't let anybody make you feel inferior without your consent. So that's the first thing is that you have to know who you are. That is what we learned from Genesis 1:26-27. We have been created in God's image. We bear God's likeness. We bear God's what's called identity. When I came here, I also came here in my late 20s. And I used to work when I was in school in New York doing my graduate course, graduate school. I used to work with African American youth. And when I speak, and then they will be, you know, trying to make fun of me. And then later on, they had a problem. The director had a problem. And they needed somebody who I have to respond in terms of writing. So I wrote the thing nicely for them. And then when they heard that, they were so amazed. So I told them that, listen, I have accent in the way I speak, but on my brain, there's no accent. All right. So we have to let them know that we are also capable. We are intelligent, as the Bible says. We can perform as the white can also perform. One of this thing that came into my mind is in Timothy. I don't remember the exact place. I think it's 2 Timothy chapter 1. Yeah, chapter 1, 2 Timothy, reading from upcoming. This one was Timothy, Pastor Timothy, who was being looked down upon by his members because Timothy was one. So this one was 8 issues. So Paul said that don't let anybody despise your youthfulness. So we should not let people look down upon us because of our color. Somebody said that if you go to Acts chapter 17, where Paul was saying that I am innocent of all blood. He didn't say that I am innocent of white or black blood. I mean, the blood groups, the doctors can bear me out. They are the same. I mean, if you take the sample from white people, you get B or A plus or O negative or whatever it is. You see that we all come from the same blood. It happened that some of us, we have a dark skin. So once again, I think it depends how we carry ourselves as believers and how we also portray ourselves in terms of what we can do. And so it's not a matter of whether you are from Africa or you are not born here, but the way you perceive yourself and what you do. So we should let what we can do speak. You see, let those things speak even, more than the color of our skin. So that's what I want to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Apostle. I like that statement. My brain has no accent.
Yes.
My brain has no accent. Let that sink into your spirit. And scripture says in Psalms 139:14, I praise the Lord because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Let that also sink into your spirit. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Apostle. Pastor Mike, we want to come to you on this issue because I think you addressed it beautifully in your opening address. This person is asking, how can I express my feelings with an individual such as my parent who don't identify with how I am feeling? All right, there seems to be that notion, again, since you address the fact that our mothers do care, our pastors do care, our elders do care, but there's this sentiment that it's not, being expressed well for them to really catch it. So how can I express the feelings that I'm going through as a Black man, Black woman, with an individual such as my parent who does not identify with how I am feeling? Any thoughts on that, sir?
I think that remains a very, very important issue that our young ones would face, especially in this country. One of the things we would want to keep in mind that I mentioned earlier on is that you don't get to choose your culture. You are born into it and you grow in it. And as you grow, the culture forms you. It informs your values. It informs how you see the world. The way an Indian sees the world will be much different from the way a white Caucasian will see the world. And so our parents were born in Africa. They see the world from an African perspective. Some of you have been following all of these documentaries and movies, episodes about African parents and all the characteristics and all of that. And you laugh and you wonder why they are behaving the way they are behaving. Well, they didn't get to choose that culture. And it's a beautiful culture. But of course, it would have variances with the culture in which you are growing in. And it's a cause for some of the major cultural battles that we see in many of our homes, where kids are holed up in their rooms and won't get out to talk to their parents because they feel there's nothing to talk about. The way the parents sees the world and the way they see the world is much different. But to our young people, in direct answer to the question, we want you to come to that point where you begin to empathize with your parents, begin to understand that my parent, my father, my mother, they have good intentions for me, but the way they see the world is probably different from how I see the world. They love me. The way they will express love to you will be different from how you will see your friends' parents in school express love. It is difficult for an African parent to hug and kiss their child. But when you go to school, you see that happen among your friends. It does not mean that your parents don't love you, they don't care about you. They do. But their cultural background, when they were growing up, they didn't get exposure to that kind of treatment. So it's very difficult to exhibit that treatment, that same treatment. But I believe that we are all learning. Our parents are learning, and we are gradually changing. It takes time. And so we will need to empathize with each other and meet each other somewhere in the middle ground. I believe we can make this happen together. Amen.
Wonderful, wonderful. God bless you, Pastor Mike. Hey, Bridget, this also comes to you. If you want to just add a little bit to what Pastor Mike just said. Now, you are a young lady, clearly in active campus ministry, president of Old Dominion. How do you handle such issue where you're trying to make dad and mom understand the way you feel and where you're coming from? And it seems to be a challenge because different cultures in our upbringing. How would you handle that if you were to go through this situation?
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Apostle Amarco and Pastor Mike, for the opportunity to speak. My answer to that question would be that you have to know how to approach each parent. So with me, I know the different personalities of my parents. So one way I may speak to one parent may not be the same way I may go to another parent in terms of how I speak. But one thing I realized is because we have that that cultural difference. Because I came here maybe at a younger age than my parents may have been here, then I understand and see things a different way. So their goals and their aspects and their aspirations are different from me coming into the school system here and seeing and understanding what racism is. So for me, it's about being able to be compassionate with our parents and being able to understand that there is a difference in the way our experiences are. So I can't necessarily hound them because they don't see that type of systematic racism that's going on, or even the little ones that they may even face and not realize that it's racism. So one thing that I would say is that we need to understand our differences and be able to be compassionate enough to speak to one another on those terms and on those grounds. And then as parents, be able to understand that we are in a different culture, we are facing a different type of thing in terms of having to be around very diverse people and having to face racial discrimination. Parents need to understand that with that comes the anger that we may see through us, the youth, and the PentSA.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bridget. So if you're a parent watching us today, please, let's all take clues from this. Our children are looking for understanding. And so there's so many things that we can learn from them. And I believe that even this forum is a great place to start. All right, we just moving along. There's plenty of questions here, so bear with us. We'll try to get through them as much as we can. Lawyer Answer, this one goes to you. Black Lives Matter. This has been the slogan and the great movement that we all see, basically pushing for reforms in the Black community and low income families and so on and so forth, social justices and all that. Now, the question is, what would I tell someone who says all life matter, or all lives matter? And in a sense, the person doesn't really understand the plight of a Black person. I think it's in the line of white privilege versus the Black experience, right? Yes, we know all life matter, but what would you tell a person if you were to say, yep, Black Lives Matter, and he says, yep, yeah, whatever, all life matter? How would you address that and let the person understand where you're coming from?
Right. Thank you very much, Pastor, and thank you very much to the leadership of the church for this opportunity to share our ideas on these important issues and matters. Before I actually get into the question, I think I just want to give a little bit of historical background on some of the legal decisions that have occurred in the country, and I think that will help us understand the context in which people came up with the slogan. They claim Black Lives Matter. And before I actually do that, I just want to say that if someone says Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean that all other lives do not matter. It doesn't really mean that. It's because of a response to a certain need or a certain occurrences within a situation. And Elder Kofi gave a little bit of historical background by referencing us back to the charter where everything began in this country, where those who met the leaders of the country actually stated that almost every man is equal. They are all the same, yet everyone in there had slaves. And these slaves were going through very serious issues, had very serious issues, and were going through very serious problems. But then, just going back from there, when the Constitution was actually put forth, if you've seen the US Constitution, you realize that it wasn't until the 13th Amendment, that is when slavery was abolished. It was until the 13th Amendment that slavery was abolished. And it didn't end there. It is the 14th Amendment that actually gave citizenship to most of the Black folks who had actually gained independence from slavery. It didn't end there. If you look into some of the landmark cases that have come through our constitutional law, you realize that there's this landmark case we call Brown versus Board of Education.
That's right.
And which occurred within the 1950s. And I just want us to have an understanding of how these things, the kind of things that were going on. Up until Brown versus School of Education schools in America were segregated. And so there was nowhere you find a Black individual and a white person or a Caucasian in the same classroom. And so this was a class action that was brought by certain parents and certain students who felt that they had the right to actually get into any school of their choice. Now, when you read the opinions of the judges, and this was a 9-0 Supreme Court opinion. That means every judge, every Supreme Court justice who sat on the case actually said that thing should be abolished and that anyone should be able to go anywhere. And it actually stemmed from most of the social responses that people were given at that time to some of these situations. It was so bad at restaurants, Blacks could not sit with whites. You could not enter in you could not enter in before them. In buses, in trains, if a white folk came in, you had to give the person a seat. Now then we come into our criminal law system. And when we come into the criminal law system, we look at how cases have happened in the criminal law. And you realize that when you follow through most of our cases, if it was just until in the early 1940s or 50s that we had a Black individual actually win a case in court. And that case had to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And this case was about criminal procedure. And so you see a pattern of behavior where Blacks have to force or go the extra mile to ensure that certain things are granted them in the society. And so when you have a little bit of the background and history of how some of these things have occurred, then it actually gives you an idea why people will sit in their rooms and then they'll come up with a slogan like Black Lives Matter. And I think for the past 2 days, I've had so many discussions with individuals about Reverend Ken, how he marshaled people out, and then they engage in all these peaceful protests. And sometimes they were arrested and jailed just for engaging in a peaceful, non-violent protest. And in the course of the protest, some of them were beaten, some of them were put in so many situations that were so bad. And so now it comes back to the question. When someone is saying, as I said, Black Lives Matter, the person is not saying that all other lives do not matter. And I know that people are tempted to say, we do believe that every life matters. But there are certain times you need to reinforce certain things within the society to actually create the notion and give people an awareness that there are people in our societies who are still being marginalized. There are people in our societies who are experiencing so many forms of injustices. There are people in our societies who are not getting the opportunities that are out there for people. And so they don't really mean that all other lives do not matter. They just want to project just themselves and let people hear them and let people know about the atrocities and the things that they experience as a people, not to discount the others. And so if someone says all lives do not matter, I just want to give out an advice that I don't expect you to be bitter about it, because definitely people have opinions. As individuals, we all have our opinions. And so if someone does not see it the way we see it, sometimes we can have conversations about it. And I know that there are people, sometimes there are even Black people who don't even understand what people are using the slogan. And it is because of how they see the world, how they see things within the society. Sometimes when we engage ourselves with conversations on some of these issues, we open up other people's minds and we bring them to the point where they also understand or appreciate that some of these things are actually affecting people in our societies, and it could affect them as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So in that same line, we also have another lawyer on there, Deaconess Oru. You might want to take this one for us, because Lawyer Chris, you mentioned protest, right? As in activism. Here's a question that somebody just posed, okay? What would you tell someone who says protesting or activism, if you will, don't get anything done in this light of Black Lives Matter, what would you be able to convince that person otherwise in this case?
I mean, I think and I'd like to thank you, Pastor, for the question. I also like to thank the national leadership and Pastor Portifi as well for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion tonight. I mean, you know, I think that as Elder Chris just kind of walked us through, every iota of progress that Black people in America have gotten has come from people taking a stand and speaking up about what is going on and shining a light on issues, right? So you don't get change, and you don't get the discussion to change or get people to notice what's going on by keeping quiet. And Pastor Portifi mentioned earlier that you have to you take a stand and you speak up. And you know, the Bible is filled with many examples of people taking a stand and speaking up about injustice, not looking the other way when something is wrong, and taking a stand on principle. And so when we talk about protesting, protesting really is about starting a conversation. I mean, I think if you look at, you watch the news coverage over the last week or so, I think that some of the things that have happened have incrementally continued to show people and shine a light on the plight of people around the country, especially minorities, Black people in the country, that otherwise might have been ignored. And so there is definitely a role for peaceful, lawful protest, obviously. You do things in a way to bring attention to the cause at hand, to the specific issue that is happening. And you do that along with other things as well. But definitely protesting has a role in advancing the conversation and moving the ball forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And I think we can all recall that the civil rights movement started with protesting, right? And I'm sure legally, every American has the right to protest, right? Lawyers, is that true?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Your
All
voice
right.
be heard.
So let's get into the deep part of these scripts, because this particular question keeps coming. Apostle Ofori, this one is for you, because I think you will be able to help us in this. Having established legally that people have the right to protest and you know, make their grievances known to lawmakers and all that, and the fact that it also can bring positive change. The question that keeps coming is, what is the church's stand on protesting? What is a church's stand when it comes to protesting, please?
Okay, putting the whole what is going on now into perspective, because this is what I'll call the uncharted course of the church. I've been here since the church started, almost about 32 years or so. We've never have to go out and demonstrate or march. That does not mean that we cannot do that. And like you said, you can have lawful and peaceful protest. The church, I'm even in Ghana. I was in Ghana. I lived in Ghana for some time. We never saw that. This afternoon, I was telling somebody that what I was used to is when we were in UST, the Ken UST, where there was a political demonstration. That was very easy because we were not controlled by any kind of thing. But this is uncharted course. And in my own reflection, I don't think it is wrong for the church to go out there, but we've never done it. And that's why we are having this conversation. And another thing I will say is that if we're youth and you feel strongly that you want to go out there and demonstrate, the church, we are not against it. What we will tell you to do is that make sure that you are not caught up in violent demonstration, or don't be violent. Yesterday, I saw some videos, somebody showed me some videos where there were some Ghanaians who were involved in the demonstration. They were facing the police, they were into the police face, and they were insulting them using Twi language insulting them. One of them was saying that my parents used to beat me with bankuta. So I'm not scared of the police baton. What can you do to me? And they were telling them by face, if you do that, you are provoking them. So as a Christian, I believe that we can have our voices heard. We can do what we call the non-violent demonstration or approach. If you look at Martin Luther King, he was a Christian, he was a minister. He went on demonstrations so many times, but he always advocated for non-violence. So the church, we are not against demonstration. What we are against is violence, destructive kind of demonstration.
Wonderful. So that is great. That clarifies the area a little bit, because that is one of the questions that kept coming in the light of what is the church's stand on it and what are we doing. Pastor Mike, can you add a few comments on it? And then when you're done, we will have Mama Jennifer Ayi also answer a few of the questions that we have here.
Thank you very much. So there are different forms of resistance. As somebody said, somebody might choose to protest. Another person might choose counseling. Another person might choose some other forms of resistance, of making their voice heard. And one church or one person, one group cannot fill all the lanes of resistance. You choose one and do what your conscience allows you to do. And for you as a Christian, the fact that there is a crisis and unrest going on does not change your identity as a Christian. You are a Christian at all times, whether good times or bad times, whether in the storms or when the rain is falling or you are having a party. Your identity is a child of God. So you've got to stay true to who you are as a child of God and not engage yourself in violence. In fact, the fathers of the civil rights movement, those who really were first-hand people in all of this fight, were not people who were advocating for violence. In fact, they saw non-violence as the greatest strength in the fight for the removal or to defeat racism. So we'd like to advise everyone, when you go out there protesting, it's going to be risky for you and you've got to stay safe. Use your judgment very well. And you don't want to go violate the law, break the law, and take other lives. Other lives get lost because you want your voice to be heard. So it doesn't really solve much problem. But definitely find an appropriate way to let your voice be heard. Don't be silent. Silence is the killer. Then the last thing I want to say is that for this forum, I hear some people are asking that you want to submit questions.
You can still do that, yep.
Yeah, we can still submit questions. Please, you can still submit questions. We're gonna have the form projected. The chat room is closed because of past experiences of chaos in chat rooms, especially for a large number like this. We have some people watching on YouTube, but there is a form in circulation, the only to answer form. Please get that form and submit your question. Questions are flowing in and we are not saving the questions. As they come in raw, Pastor Carl is getting them and projecting them. So let's and continue to enjoy the session. Amen.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think this one reminds me of when the issue of homosexuality was being pounded as an agenda in Ghana. Our immediate past chairman, Opokunyina, actually stood up and made his voice known. And that was a great example of a godly protest, if you will, without necessarily breaking through anybody's store or setting fires and so on and so forth. So that's good. I think I want to stay here because the type of questions that keep coming on this is great. So Deaconess Jennifer Aye, I think I haven't addressed you yet. So please, if you want to take this question here, it's deep. I can feel the raw emotions in this one. It says, why is it that the church leaders have been harassing young members to take down their posts that called on the church to speak up and take action? Are we as Christians supposed to just sit and keep quiet about injustice? Are we not allowed to hold our own church accountable for their actions? So it's in line with what Pastor Mike just mentioned, but it keeps coming. All the questions are kind of in this line. So Mrs. Ayi, if you can help us with that.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity again. And thank you to everyone for coming on the line. I guess I get the most difficult question.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I believe that just as the Bible says in Ecclesiastes, there is time for everything. There is time to hug and there is time to refrain from hugging. There is an opportunity for us to speak and there is always a better way of doing one thing. There isn't one way that is the best for everything. There are so many other ways of doing things. So if the church, being a forum for peace, which Christ calls for, and we all remember the slogan that we have for this year, we are trying to win nations. We are trying to be the example of the world. So even if there are ways that we can use, we have the opportunities to do everything, but not all things are right to us. We all know that the church has protocols and we also know the level of authority. We can go through our leaders, our local leaders, send the information to them and they will forward it to the appropriate quarters. So these are the protocols that we have. That said, we do not discourage anyone from having their voices heard. We have examples of Nehemiah where they saw the walls of Jerusalem and the gates of Jerusalem broken. He took it upon himself, went to God, gathered a couple of people, and they were able to build the walls and put the gates on the walls. All have a part to play, but just like Nehemiah did, we all have ways of going through these protocols and also ensuring that whatever we're doing, we are not creating more confusion or more problems, but we are doing everything in a peaceful manner. We are all in this together. As mothers, fathers, young women and men, we are all in this together. So the church is here to support. The church is there. We don't want you to not to have your voices heard, but we want you to do it in a way that all of us will have peace. And before we take any step, just like David did, before David even went for war, he would go to God and ask God, should I take this step? If God says no, he wouldn't. So for wisdom, discernment, and direction in every step that we take. So that's my little addition to that.
God bless you so much. Wisdom, that's what I heard, wisdom. That's a principal thing for all of us to take. So that is a great point, Auntie Ayi. God bless you for that. I just want to run through, there's so many questions coming, so I'm going to combine these two together, and I'm going to throw it back to our apostle on the line because I think he can help us with that. The question is, what is the church's stance on racial matters such as systemic racism, which happens every day? And then the follow-up to that question is, will the church in this manner support any Black movements financially?
All right. Once again, I think in Apostle Amoako's opening statement that I read, we made it stated, we stated it black and white, that the church is against racism, racial profiling, police brutality, discrimination, prejudice, anything against humanity, we are against it. All right. We may not be out there with placards, but that is what we are called to do. We are called to let people know that they are all precious, they are all important. So in Church of Pentecost, we don't discriminate, we don't throw people out. One of the things that Apostle Spokonya used to say is that we should accept people as they are. So we accept, thank God that the church is gradually getting diversified in the US. As on this line, we even have some of our white members from Kentucky on the line, on the forum. We have, when you go to India, the whole church is 100% Indians. So we respect everybody and we respect racial equality. The other question is, are we going to support any what? Say that question again.
Is the church willing to support any Black movement financially?
Well, once again, we've never done this before, but I don't think it's not doable. As long as, you see, in the United States, there are laws, okay? So as long as that movement is not at law, when I say it's at law or it is illegal, I mean, if there's a law that you cannot support this organization, then we cannot. But if they are charting a very good cause, they are civil rights movement, they are promoting a good social or political cause, I think we should be able to support that kind of movement. So we've never tried, doesn't mean that we cannot do it. Okay, so these are some of the things that we can look into it and discuss at the leadership level. If we get a request, I think we should be able to do that. I don't think it's not doable.
Wonderful, wonderful. Attorney Anson, if you want to just quickly, just 2 seconds or so, if you want to just add a few flesh to it. Does the church have any legal restrictions as a 501c organization in terms of what Apostle is saying? If in fact our fathers are willing to help some legitimate organizations that are pushing agendas for, racial inequities and so on and so forth. Do we have any restrictions or anything of that nature? What does the law say with that? Real quick, please.
Right. I mean, strictly, the law just says that if you're a 501c organization, you're not supposed to contribute to political campaigns or institutions that raise funds for political campaigns. And so if you have some of these organizations that are on the face fighting for social justice or fighting for social equalities, I mean, behind them, if they are being used as political tools for certain individuals, I mean, that could also raise some significant questions. But again, the law is straightforward. So long as it is not politically motivated, then essentially, as an organization, we have the right to support the community in any way.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, thank you. All right, Dr. J, forgive me, I have not called on you yet, but I think this question would fit you just perfectly fine. And then perhaps Mrs. Bonsu can also add some to it. Now I'm gonna read it verbatim as it's presented. Hi, I have a question for the forum. In light of what is happening, I have seen lots of posts overemphasizing that parents take their kids to historic Black colleges and pull them out of predominantly white institutions. I guess my question is, doesn't it defeat the purpose of desegregation in the academic sectors? I'm not saying that it is bad to go to HBC schools, but I don't see the point of overemphasizing that kids go to HBCs instead of going to any school they freely choose. In other words, is it really necessary in the midst of what's going on to have parents, be so afraid or concerned that they pull their kids from predominantly white colleges to specifically historically Black colleges? So Dr. J, if you want to throw some light as what you think about that, and then Mrs. Bones, who can add a few to it, please.
Thank you, Doc, for the question. I personally believe that Reverend Porterfield did talk about it, that we should approach everything with the background that we are Christians. And a verse that comes to mind, and God says that my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my way. For as high as the heaven is above the earth, so are my ways. So in this emotional charged situation, we should not react to situations. We should rather act in ways that will bring positive and progressive change.
Hello?
We should
you can go ahead, Doctor, please. Yep.
Yeah, we should act in ways that will bring progressive change. So if we feel that division is a problem in America, we cannot solve division with division. Rather, our approach should be that we know our value and we can stand up on any platform. We understand our God-given giftings. We have strength in our abilities. So pulling your child from a balanced school, balanced college to a predominantly Black institution in hope that that is a solution to racism in America. I don't think so. I don't think that is a solution. The solution is that we should train our kids right from the home to have an understanding that I have value, and no matter the environment that human beings go to, I can go to also. And we should reject this tokenism that they're doing to us. An example I'll use, which I've preached on before. Why is it that when we have a Black man go to a school, it becomes news?
If he goes to Harvard or Yale, right?
He goes to Harvard, and all of a sudden it's projected because they've created a system to make us think that we don't belong there. So if you are the first person, then it's news. The other way around, look at athletics. Do we hear of the first white person to beat Usain Bolt? Do we hear of the first white person to do something that we are good at? No, because they've been made to think that if anybody can do it, they can do it too. So I believe that we can't forget our history. There are universities that were built by people of old, of Black origin. There are universities with very deep racial histories behind them. We cannot forget about them. We cannot ignore the history. But in going forward, we cannot solve racism with division. I believe that what we may be forced into is that we may turn into protesters and not really deal with the underlying issue.
Yeah.
Dr. Carl, when coronavirus came, it killed more Black than any other race. We were quiet. If you take the poverty line, you check the percentages, and there are more poor Black homes than any other race. I'm happy we are talking about this, but let us be honest with ourselves. If we don't deal with the underlying issue of our identity, if we don't deal with the underlying issue of getting equal opportunities in this land, we will be just protesting, and the cycle will keep going on without any progressive change. So I wouldn't advise any parent to based on emotional response, pull your child to a Black community. But we should rather teach our young ones that wherever you want to go, you can go. And don't buy into this, the first Black person to do this. No, we are human beings. We have the same abilities. And if any other race can do it, we can do it too. Do we hear about the first Asian to do it? No. We are the only race that when someone breaks forth, they use it as a token to us, to pacify us. But I think we should demand a response that is more progressive and a response that can be sustained.
Wonderful, wonderful. God bless you. Once again, my brain has no accent and my brain has no color, right? It's the same white and gray matter in our brain, right? I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Great. Elder Kofi, I'm going to come back to you because we're getting into solutions now, right? We now have established that the church stands on speaking up and protesting. It's got to be done in a godly way. What other solutions, if you will, avenues that as Christians we can undertake to help support and push the agenda of righting racial inequalities in our country? And I think others can also chime in on this one, but I will throw it to Elder Kofi for now.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me much better now.
Yes, you do. Good.
I think I just want to say that it is not realistic for us to expect that we can solve racism ever. I think we should appreciate as Christians that racism is one of the outworkings of the fallen nature of man. And that it is going to be with us. People are going to look down upon you just because they don't like the way your nose is shaped. And so it goes back to what we've established already, that we have to know who we are in Christ. And knowing who we are in Christ also gives us the mindset that we are sojourners. Apostle Paul calls us, we are journeying through this world. but we are, however, called to excel at whatever the Lord puts into our hands. And so I would say, the first thing that I've just been going through this, that we have to be the change. Number one, we have to be the change in the sense that we have to be able to know that God has given us a unique opportunity. Even when we are being hit and kept down, we have the ability to rise up and do twice better. Now, respectability politics doesn't get rid of racism, but it also projects an expectation that we are also capable, like we've already established. We need to see some of us get into positions that allows us to be able to change some of these policy issues. We need more lawyers running for school council. We want to encourage our children to run for student council presidents. We want to encourage young men and women to be able to go out there and run for county positions, run for Congress, run for positions that allows us to be able to articulate that the God that we serve is able to elevate and use us as part of the solution for what we are all fighting for. And then another thing that I would also ask is, let me just give you a quick story. When I came to this country in the mid-90s, children could be very cruel, as our apostle was saying in the beginning. They will look at you and they will talk down at you because you don't talk like they do. But, a time came in the late 90s when I was in high school where Kofi Annan became the Secretary General of the United Nations. And all of a sudden, we had somebody on a large, respectable platform called Kofi, and I shared a common name with him. And I remember that somebody asked me, yo, do you know that guy Kofi Annan? I said, yeah, he's my uncle. And all of a sudden, I get to relate, and there's a certain degree of respectability conferred upon me because all of a sudden, God has used that one person to create an opening of social acceptance. Now, it is my chance to be the Kofi that somebody can point to and say, that's my uncle, and he's done it, and I can also be there. Take consolation with that, right? So we have to be able to find ways to elevate, use the excellence that we keep talking about with prayer. We keep talking about prayer. And if we do all of this without prayer or without Christian virtues, we would have missed the mark. But if we can reach where God is taking us, and we can be an example for others, that will be a big part of the solution. And then I want to make this final point. I want to encourage all of us to be unapologetically Black, be unapologetically African. I wear this outfit. I have many African prints. Every Friday in the summertime, I wear it to work. Initially, I was like, I see these white girls come in, like they wear their Peace Corps clothes. So I'm an African. Why shouldn't I be representing the best of my culture on a Friday if everybody else is able to do it? Why am I still wearing a tie? The point is, we need to be able to say and show and project culturally that we know who we are. We are proud of where God has made us, and that we are not going to apologize for who we are. And if we can stand up and defend our dignity as Africans, that will do way more than going out there and crashing into somebody's store. So I just want to be able to say, let us stand them with excellence. They cannot deny your excellence. They may hate on you, but they can't deny that you are better at whatever you do than everybody else. And I think that will be a big part of the solution. Let's run for political positions. Let's hire people and give them opportunities. And I think all of these things we've talked about before, and the church has a platform to do it. So let us use these platforms. And I think we're already doing it. Let's amplify it and let's do more of it. God richly bless all of us. Over.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's squash mediocrity and let's pursue excellence. That's great. And I think you're right. The church has a role to play in here where we can encourage young men and women to pursue some of these career paths that traditionally as immigrants and Africans, where everybody wants you to become a doctor, a lawyer, a pharmacist, or whatever. The story of Barack Obama, right? Finished law school, becoming community organizer. Everybody perhaps was laughing at him. Well, here he was, became president. So there are areas that we can have influence, especially I kept telling a couple of young folks that what actually brings a change are people that make the law, right? The legislators, the local county police chief, the fire marshal, your mayor, And that brings about the next question, because somebody just posted. Well, not a question, I guess it's more of an encouragement. And it says, vote, 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 right? That is another way besides all that we're doing in protest and praying and letting our voice known. When there is even a non-presidential year election, let's not sit home, go vote. And I would add this to it, that we shouldn't also fall for all these photo ops and things like that these politicians try to win us over with, right? We gotta have to do our own research in those areas to know who we're voting for, who is pushing our Christian agenda, of course, but who is also seeking our welfare as Black people. That is very important. And I thought I kind of chip that one in there. Apostle, did you want to contribute, please?
Yeah, can I contribute? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Add something to what the Kofi said. We should be realistic about race and racial inequality. The question is, do we have to be concerned? Yes. Do we have to fight for racial equality? Yes. But another thing is that, and I think he mentioned that, can we totally eradicate racism? No.
No.
That doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight. Because I was saying that there's what we call institutional racism, which is that it has become part of their life. When the children are born, one way or the other, it gets into their heart, their minds. That black is this and white is that, right? So it is in their brain. And one of the ways that we can change their mindsets is the way we carry ourselves. And I always say that not all of us can be pulpit apostles or can be pulpit pastors, but we can be what I call marketplace apostles or marketplace pastors, this means that whatever profession you find yourself, whether you're a teacher, engineer, military officer, doctor, pharmacist, businessman, let them know that you are a Black man, you are a Black woman with, let me use this word, with an attitude that you are different and that you are there also to influence them in a very positive way. Even your ability to present Christ in the way that you work, in your honesty, integrity, can influence a lot of people. You see, when people become Christians, it is only Christ who is able to change people's minds. Because with some of these things we do, we are trying, but it's external. I mean, the ungenerated man, whether it is Black or white, has his own issues, challenges, so far as stereotyping are concerned. So let us challenge ourselves. Let us study very hard, especially those of you who were born here or those who came here. Study very hard. Determine that you're not going to go for the lower position in this society. You want to go up, because somebody said if you want to influence, the best way to influence is to fly high. When you're in the sky, you can influence. Another thing I want to also say is that, yes, there's racism in America. We were not born here. If we were able to come here, go to school, and some of us became legal drug dealers. That is another word for pharmacists, doctors, social worker, and directors. It means beyond racism, there are opportunities. So let's speak against racism. Let's fight racial injustice, but let's look beyond that. There are a lot of opportunities in this country that we can also hold and then use to change the society. So let us be proactive. Let us seek to influence and change the society in a better way. Don't forget that we are believers. We're supposed to be what? Light and salt of the earth. Salt preserves, where there is a corruption and you bring salt, it is able to make things better. And light also, where there's darkness, light comes and makes it looks better. So we have a lot of things that we can do apart from just demonstrating and writing. We can do something more than that. So that's what I want to add.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Apostle. Pastor Mike, this one goes to you. And sorry, bro, but it's pretty interesting here. The person says, how can we as Christians react to a president who promotes military to handle the protesters, and then the next day has a photo shoot with a Bible in his hand?
Well, that's a very good question. You know, people have their own views on the issues of life, and we see him, of course, advocating for war, and then at another time, you know, the person is holding a Bible. I will say now we are not a political organization, so we won't advocate for you making a decision to vote against or for. That is a decision that you have to make as you pray and the Lord leads you. But what we would say is that the power is in your hands to influence legislature, to influence politics. That power is through the ballot. Whatever you prayerfully believe is not working the way you want it to be, you have the opportunity to vote. You know, you have the opportunity to vote. Secondly, I know there's been concerns expressed as to whether we should submit to the government that be or not. So let me just add that, tag that on here. Biblically, Bible says the governments that be are appointed of the Lord. They are there for our security. That is why we don't want to, at this point, also antagonize the police. If we are to remove all the police force out of the system, assuming this is a win, all police stations are closed, I think this place will be a scary place to be in, because anyone can break into your room and you don't have anywhere to go. So some way, somehow, the governments that be deserve our respect, deserve our honor. We have to be law-abiding citizens. If for some reasons we don't agree with the governments that be, let's vote them out of power. Let's vote them out of power. We can do that. And then lastly, I just want to add that for as many of us that are wanting, eager to support some kind of resistance, you want your voice to be heard, besides the protesting or any other means of expressing yourself, there are also some civil rights organizations that are genuine, sincere, that the church is not opposed to your supporting them. For example, the community bail funds, we have the George Floyd Memorial Fund that people are giving. I plan to give something in there. The Love Land Foundation, there is the Campaign Zero, there is the Equal Justice Initiative, there is the Brennan Center for Justice. So, we are giving these ones out, so we will not tag COP as being so inward-looking and unconcerned about some of these resources. Let our voice be here. Let's go out there, support some of these groups, but be safe in everything that you do. We don't want people going out and not working with the social distance policies and getting coronavirus. We've got to use our senses and act appropriately. So that is for the president's piece, and also opportunities for us to let our voices be heard.
Okay, thank you. Let me pull the next question here. Bridget, I think this one goes for you, since we're talking about solutions and ways to forge forward. You are the, I guess, student representative on the line here. The church wants to hear from our young folks. As Pastor Mike and Apostle Furi remarked when we started, we don't pretend to know everything. We are learning, and this is an evolving process. What do you, talking to your folks, okay, this is a great opportunity for you. What do you hear from your friends, your colleagues, as to what the church can do in these type of situations? What are some of the things that they are expecting to see their pastors, their elders, even their mothers do to help push this agenda of racial inequality? Be candid here. We want you to be very candid on this one, okay?
Thank you. So I think first and foremost, platforms like this is something that they look forward to. Being able to ask questions, being able to be heard, being able to get answers in terms of what the church is doing. Also being able to, I know we like to fast and pray towards a lot of our our situations, especially culturally. And I think that one question that was posed to me a while back was, why is it that we can pray in terms of, you know, immigration, and we take time to pray for things like that, but when it comes to social injustices, we're not taking time to pray, or, you know, something that in a sense is sugar coated. So I think being able to connect with us in terms of the struggles that we're also facing, because most of us already have passed the immigration stage. So we may not be able to see in terms of like others that may need it. We also want to be able to be heard in terms of the things that are struggles for us right now. So one of the things that I also heard was being able to take time in our churches to talk about these things, call out the racial injustices, which I really honestly, I applaud the church for doing that. I've seen a lot of national, regional, and district type of programs that are trying to break open that conversation. So I really do appreciate that. I think just to continue having the conversation, so not just ending it right here today, but how are we going to talk about it 4 years later? How are we going to talk about it 10 years later? Are we going to look in terms of the church, like funding and being on the front lines, or finding a way to be able to petition with our Black brothers and sisters, and realizing that at the end of the day, it's not just a Black problem or an African American problem, but it's a problem that also affects us and the generations to come. Thank you.
Great, great. Apostle, if you want to help us here, because I wanted Bridget to be very candid. I think she's done the best she can here. What I have been hearing quite a lot since these things started, unfortunately, is the notion that even what we are doing seems to be a performative thing. And oh, now the church is trying to just do something to show that they've done something. I want you to reassure our young folks who are listening to us, you know, with a background that we don't pretend to know anything, as you just said, but what can we do and say to them for them to be reassured that we take these things seriously, and moving forward, we are forging, you know, mitigation ways, whatever, to help, you know, with the struggle of the Black man's plight in America. Any words of reassurance and encouragement for us, Apostle?
So I think apart from the discussion, which I believe that we're going to continue it from the, when I started at the regional level, we want to go down to the districts and the rest. We are going to collect and collate all these ideas. We are looking at two things: the short-term goal, the short-term kind of intervention. What can we do? And I think the discussions are part of it. These discussions, these are the short-term goals, including what we can do. We are looking for like what we call community partnership and collaboration. You know, that's a very easy one. We're going to the mayor's office, some of these town meetings, being part of it. So these are the short-term meetings, developing relationship with even with the police. We have to develop relationship with them. The police are not our enemies. I think if somebody said that without them we cannot live. I mean, if you live in a place like New York, without police presence, you cannot live there. So they are not our enemies. Not all police are bad. We need to develop. So we are looking forward something short-term measures. And then also we're going to have a long-term, which that one, I cannot tell what exactly to be. We're going to have our short-term goals, which will be reflective in what we call our action plans. Because as part of the agenda, the Vision 2023, transforming nations, Apostle Nyamiche is very, very particular, very interested in how the church, we collaborate with our community, how we impact on our communities. And I think this is a very good opportunity for us to do that. So in the short term, we're going to have the discussion, we're going to move from the community level. And then in the long term also, we're going to have action plan. And I believe that it's not going to be an overnight discussion or overnight, and there's going to be long-term plans where we can follow up, and it can become part of the church's vision plan or agenda in terms of how we deal with social, racial injustice, and how do we work with our fellow Black Americans? How do we work with the police and the rest? So I believe that we are going to follow up whatever we are discussing. And once again, we want to give credit to the youth. I mean, you have really pushed us to do something. And I think we will definitely continue with the leadership. And with the help of the youth leadership, definitely the fire is not going to die.
All right. That's great, Apostle. Thank you for the reassurance. If you can reiterate what you said, that moving forward is going to be a clear, stance from the church in terms of where we stand in some of these social injustices. Even though we've always had it, we have not made it so pronounced. And therefore, sometimes it kind of makes it appear that we are just on the backstage and not doing anything. So that's a great reassurance that, God forbid, we don't want these things happening again. But if they were to happen, the church would be in a much, much more better position to show our solidarity and also to enact certain, if you will, programs that would help push this cause forward. Pastor Mike, I think you had something else to say before. We want to open the line a little bit. I think we've heard people are a little bit agitated because there's so much questions coming in. We can't read them all, but we may have to open the floor a little bit for some people to share their thoughts on this. But right after Pastor Mike gives his comment, and then we do that.
All right, thank you, Pastor Carl. Two quick things. Number one is an addition to what we've just heard about community engagement as far as the church is concerned. In fact, as part of the 5-year vision of the church, given what our dear apostle just said right now, engaging the community is a very essential part of ministry. Our obligation now is not to stay within the walls of the church. And every minister of the church is aware of that. You are part of it, I am part of it. We are to engage the mayor's office. We are to engage community officials. One of the first things I did when I came to Wayne was to go to the mayor's office and go and introduce myself. He's also come to the church. He's come to see what Rehoboth and Church of Pentecost is all about. We've got to foster these relationships. We believe that it's these relationships that will help us to influence change and to let our voices actually be heard. It's not only through protesting, but by fostering formidable community relationships and partnerships with community-based organizations. That is so critical, so important. And so let's help our churches and let's help our local leaderships to establish those kinds of influential relationships. There's another comment I wanted to make about representing the church on social media, because somebody asked whether it's okay to shut up the young people from going on social media. I'll say the answer is no. We are open to we are encouraging people to speak up. Actually, it's biblical to speak up, but you've got to speak up within the boundaries or limitations of protocol. For example, I can't go and stand on social media and speak for Bank of America. I've not been authorized to make comments on behalf of Bank of America. Because if concerns and issues pop up as a result of what I'm saying, well, they have to go and ask the leadership of Bank of America to respond. In the same way, COP, Church of Pentecost USA, has protocol. If you have a concern about the church, you, as our mother has already said it, you've got to channel it through the right means. But if you begin to present yourself as the face and you are asking everybody to come to you, that's taking the role of the national head. So we want to be able to do things the right way. And definitely the church leadership is open to hearing from all of us. And we want to hear from you. We're actually thrilled with the kind of young people that we have who will speak and let us work together. That's a beautiful thing. But let's do it through the right way. And we're definitely going to achieve that one goal that we all want to achieve.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Mike. And just wanted to throw in this comment there. We want to sincerely apologize for not giving everybody the chance to voice out. We perceive that with the large crowd that we had, this was the close to best way of handling this. Obviously, this is not the end. We will keep doing this periodically. But at this point, If you have a comment, a question, a contribution, we want you to just click on raising your hand on your button there. The media team are going to recognize you, and then you can give your comment. We admonish us spirit-filled people always exercise decorum. But definitely, if you have a comment, there's something that's bothering you, please just click on your raise your hand button, and the media team will get you the chance to comment or ask you a question. Okay. Do we have somebody?
So the first person will be Daniel Jima.
All right. Daniel, go ahead, sir.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Thanks to leadership for giving us the opportunity for this forum. I just wanted to address the comment on the HBCUs. And I think, you know, I mean, I heard the, you know, the comment that came, and I think part of what I heard is the reason why we're having this call and the reason why we discussed our parents, how our parents feel about, you know, African Americans in this country. I don't agree that, you know, HBCUs promote any type of Black agenda or make it seem like, you know, Black people should only work with Black people. You know, if you think about it, HBCUs were established because white people didn't allow Black people to go to regular universities, so they had to establish HBCUs for Black people to attend, so to get a good education. The education you get at any HBCU is not any less than whatever you get anywhere else. I mean, based on whatever level the university is. Like I went to UMass Lowell. You know, Howard University is a way better college than UMass Lowell. You know, Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah, went to an HBCU. The first Thurgood Marshall, a Supreme Court judge, the first Black Supreme Court judge, went to an HBCU. And you know, and the idea that if you go to an HBCU, you'll not be able to relate to people in the real world, also disagree, because if you grow up in Ghana, you mostly grew up with all Black people. A lot of Black people, you know, I mean, all your surroundings are going to be Black. So does that mean that when you leave Ghana and you come to the United States or you go anywhere else, you'll not be able to relate to other people? You know, I think HBCUs actually promote, you know, Blackness and just loving ourselves. You know, if you go to PWIs, predominantly white schools, sometimes you face a lot of, you know, discrimination, you know, environment where it's not suitable for you to work. And I think HBCUs kind of promote, you know, a comfortable place for you to learn, just taking your education without any of the racial stuff. I'm not saying it's not there totally, but it's less of that. And I know plenty of lawyers that graduate from there that are all my friends, you know, from Spelman College, Howard, Lincoln University. So I totally disagree with that. I think HBCUs are great institutions. They're not any less, they're not inferior to PWIs. And I definitely encourage y'all to talk to your parents if you want to go there, because you get good education and you see like-minded people that look like you, and kind of like foster a place for you to study without all the racial tension. Because trust me, you'll face some racial tensions at predominantly white schools. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, Daniel. Thanks for that comment. I like the beard though. That's awesome. All right, great. Please, who is next? Media team.
Next is Eunice Yankson.
All right, Eunice, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I just have a statement I would like to share with everybody.
Absolutely.
For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. My first and only question is, do we, Ghanaians, Africans, equally love Black Americans as Christ loves us? For those of us that came to this country for education or to seek a better life, at an age when our opinions of society had already been shaped by a country an ocean away, we often choose to be ignorant of the struggles Black Americans face once our flights have landed and we're allowed to turn off the airplane mode on our phones. We don't see and understand how this country has intentionally pumped illegal drugs into Black communities and then arrested citizens who sold these drugs as a way to put food on the table. We don't see how the majority of abortion clinics are conveniently located in Black and other minority communities, stunting the populational growth of the race. We don't see how, because of the intentional lack of infrastructure, companies don't want to invest in these communities. meaning schools will never get the funding that they truly need, and teachers will continue to use their paychecks to buy supplies for their students. We don't see how a small business owner cannot get a loan, but his white counterpart with a lower credit score can. When you get off that plane, you don't become a different kind of Black because you know your African history, have a thick accent, or how polite you are. You are Black. Racism will find you no matter what bed you hide under, whether you have a flashy car or not, young or old. The only criterion that has to be met is the hue of your skin matching the barrel of an officer's gun. I call the church to first pray. Pray for the families of those that have been murdered, and pray for understanding, an open heart, and an open mind. Then pray for the spirit of racism to be uprooted. For those my age, your anger is valid because I am angry. Channel it into righteous action. Have a conversation with older people in our communities, whether it is collaborations between youth and Penta, the men's movement and the women's ministry, or the witness ministry. Make it happen. Penta ministries, come up with a tangible way to support those that protest if you choose not to. And then pray again. We're Pentecostal. We cannot rescue the perishing if they have already perished. Thank you.
That was great. God bless you so much for sharing this with us and pouring your heart out to us. I'm not sure who wants to handle this because I think it's a common theme. There's anger, raw emotions, there's hurt. And there's a lot of young ones on this line that are going through this emotional, real pain. I wish, one of us could, maybe Pastor Mike or somebody could, speak to that, please, because this is really deep. And if we can speak to their spirit at this moment, that would be awesome.
Yeah, this Apostle. What I want to say is that I remember when I came here about 32 years ago, I had a similar question. Somebody asked me, "You don't understand the African American experience," and I said, "If I can understand it, then you have to help me to understand it." I don't think we would fully understand what the African Americans have been through for 400 years, but best we can empathize. I mean, when I came, before I came into the ministry, I worked for 17 years in Bedford-Stuyvesant, one of the tough places in Brooklyn, as a social worker. I went to these projects trying to help putting families together, okay? Still, I don't think I fully understood what they went through. But as I said, we can empathize with them. We can support them in so many ways, so many dimensions. And one of the things that I think I said was the community partnership. Wherever we are located as a church, we can reach out in so many ways. That by doing voluntary work in the community and that kind of thing. Apart from, the spiritual aspect, which we are very good, the prayers and that kind of thing. So we would not fully understand, but at least we can reach out. And the only way we can understand is to work with them, trying to support their cause, these noble causes. I always say that I don't think if the African Americans never came to US, it would have been easier for us to come here also. Just like Elder Kofi was saying, that there have been a series of laws that were put in place, which made it possible for us to come over. Okay, so they have done a lot of things. They have sacrificed a lot, not only for this country, but those of us who were not even born here, we are beneficiaries of their sweat, their suffering, their sacrifices. So we should do everything to also support them, to help them, and to stand by them whenever we have such things. And that's what I want to say.
Pastor Mike, can you speak to the pain, the raw pain and hurt that we all are going through, and kind of get people's mind at rest a little bit for us?
Yeah, we share in the concerns and the pain that our dear sister actually shared, eloquently and well put, and very understandable. I must say we relate to what you just shared. It's heartbreaking to see the challenges the pain, the struggle that our brothers and sisters, African Americans, are going through. Let me first establish the fact that we are one. We are one with African Americans. The only difference is that we came in late, but we are here. They took the lead, and we've already heard a lot from Elder Kofi and Apostle about the struggles that these precious ones have had to go through. Many lives lost, being shot on the streets, being lynched to death. A lot of blood has been shed in order to make the life that we are leading possible today. And so let us not ignore that. I believe it's time for us to begin to talk to our parents at home, all our people who are of African descent, to let them understand that even though you don't get it yet, let's begin to even be Christians and begin to demonstrate the love of God. If we talk about loving the neighbor, what does that mean? Loving the neighbor. It's a heavy statement. It's the first commandment. It's the greatest passion of God. You cannot win somebody you don't love. You cannot win somebody to Christ whom you don't value, and you just derogatory remarks about them. Sometimes even when some of us go to work, we look at African Americans and we look down on them. We degrade them. We say, oh, they drink alcohol. The system has made life difficult and tough for them. Of course, there are some that could have done things better. They have choices and opportunities they did not seize, but the majority have been subjected to this systematic racism, institutional racism that has marginalized them and made life very tough for them. So let's empathize with them. Let's love them. They are one of us. So I want to agree with the pain that our young people are expressing, but let's find an amicable, peaceful, godly way to express this anger, that it doesn't go to rather destroy. Lastly, I want to say that in your own way, let's support Black businesses. You know, there are small Black businesses in town. Let's support them. Once some of you go to school and you become politicians, legislators, lawmakers, come up with things that will support the Black community. Let's stand out. Elder Kofi talked about excellence. When you get to the place of excellence, no one can deny you opportunities to influence. And that is what we want to do. We don't want our voices to be limited. We're talking about possessing the nations. Possessing the nations, then we have to rise up and extend a hand of love into the community, and more looking at the depraved, marginalized groups. Jesus was particular about marginalized groups. He talked about the Samaritans. He talked about Zacchaeus. He talked about all these little groups that have been sidelined, and he literally went to them. So we've got to get out of our comfort zones and go to these groups that are marginalized, show them the love of God, and be real Christians for that matter. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Mr. Carr, may I add?
Yeah, Kofi, please, yes.
I just wanted to flag the fact that I think the way we are talking about this, somebody may hear it and say that we keep making the mistake that there's a them and us.
And then wait, right, I was just going to say that.
The them is us.
Yes.
You know, even if we don't speak like they do, it's bad enough, and it's emotionally hard enough to have to constantly be learning to put white folks at ease just so that you can preserve your life and not have to de-escalate situations. It's very emotionally toilsome to have to learn and to teach your children that just by existing, you can be seen as a threat. But then on top of that, to have that to be the foreground, and in the background of that to also be that even that may not even be enough to stop an evil-minded law enforcement officer to put their foot on your neck, right? And so that is the source of the anger. And I think we need to call it out for what it is, number one, that it is justifiable anger, but it's anger that can be channeled in different ways. And I think what made Jesus revolutionary was the fact that even when he was despised, he repaid hatred with love. And this is what makes Christianity so hard, that his kingdom is not of this world. And so when we have to endure the institutional slides, you know, I think about the fact that I owe it to my children to come home alive every day.
Right.
I owe it to my community to come back alive. And so staying alive and projecting that excellence I was talking about, that alone should be a motivation for us to just learn to tap into that spirit of long suffering. Others had to suffer and endure so that we may have the privilege of having this conversation now. And I think we need to be able to suffer and endure and call it out when the opportunity presents itself, so that our children will not have to fight the same battles we are fighting now. And so I just want to go back to that point, that the them is us and it is our children.
Yes.
And that the anger needs to be voiced. Otherwise, it will continue to boil and will cause mental problems. We need to give room for the venting, but let's channel it. Our Father says, as they hit us on the top of the head, let us strengthen our neck with grit, G-R-I-T. That allows us to conquer whatever is put in front of us. And I know that as we back it up with prayer, look, at the end of the day, we have what? 100 years tops, 120 if you're lucky. But then there is a long eternity. And in the world to come, the Bible tells us that that is where the imperfections will be corrected and racism will be wiped away. I don't expect racism to be wiped away in my lifetime or in my children's lifetime. But I know that when my time on earth has come to an end, I have a kingdom to look forward to where my color doesn't matter, because that is not, it has not been affected by the futility and the corruption that our world has been subjected to. So I just wanted to make that comment and to just recognize that people have the right to be angry. Let's give them room to be angry, but let's help them to channel it in godly ways. Amen.
Well said.
Pastor Carr, can I contribute too, please?
Please, yeah, hold on one sec for me. But Kofi, well said, because that's something that I wanted to reiterate as well. Their plight is our plight. Our plight is their plight. So let's really make sure that we understand that the them is us and we are them, right? The same struggles that they're going through is what we are also going through. So that's a great way of making us all understand. Bless you. I'm not sure who was speaking, but absolutely, please go ahead.
Yeah, that was me, Pastor. It's John. There was one thing that Elder Kofi said that I think we need to hit on. While we wait for our leaders to think about what we might end up doing to help out in these things that are happening, there's things that we can do. See, I think for so long we have taken our votes for granted, because maybe one person might be on the top that we might not like, but it doesn't start from the top. The laws are not made. The laws are not made by the president. He only signs them. He only signs them. There are people we can vote in. That we ourselves can stand in. We can run for offices. I think, and sometimes that's a knock that I've always had on our church, and promoting doctors and all that kind of stuff. So when it came to the social stuff, we never talked about it. But I think this has brought that to the forefront, that it's about time we start promoting some of these things, police officers, all these kinds of things. It's in our hand. Look, let me tell you. In 2008, one of the things Obama did to realize that young people were very important is he looked at the census. He saw that 50,000 Hispanics turned 18 every day. So he tapped into those census to use 51,000 African Americans turned 18 every day. He used that to his benefit. That means that we have a voice. But when somebody comes, I don't want to vote, because that's what's happening. Because we have allowed it to pass by so long that now these people are in positions and they dictate to us what needs to be done, because we take it for granted. We take it for granted. So from the bottom, from our churches, it's about time we start knowing our mayors. It's about time we start knowing who our city councilors are, so they can hear our voices. If we are a church and we go and we say we have 300 members, 400 members, and so they can come and speak to us, you don't think they will come? They will come, because when election time comes, they need our votes. So right now, while we are angry and upset at what we saw, this is the time for us to channel it at the local level and then up, because we are tired. Yes, we are tired. Amen.
Amen.
Please have a follow-up that I want to chime in quickly.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that one of our hand-raised guests?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, all right. I'm not seeing you, so I'm just following the prompts of the media team. So if you're in, then definitely, please go ahead.
After him will be M&M.
Okay.
Thank you.
God richly bless the leaders for opening this forum for us to channel our anger, as rightfully said. And I want to say something in reference to voting. I've spoken with a lot of Christians, and they're under the impression, and if I'm wrong, please, anybody can chime in, especially the pastors on the line. I've heard people usually say that if you vote Democrat, you are not standing Christian, you don't have Christian values. And if you vote Republican, then you have Christian values. And I've used this argument that the president is not a pastor or a priest. The president is the president of the nation, and his duty is to make laws and policies or put policies in place that will benefit every citizen. So we don't look at a particular party, what their values are. Regardless of what we do, some of the policies will have to be passed because some of them are based on prophecies, or they've been there since time immemorial. Lesbianism has been there since Jesus was alive, the Bible was inception, it's never gone anywhere. Of course, some presidents have come and they've put it in place, but that doesn't mean that as Christians, we can vote Democrat when we know somebody has a racist mindset or lack of poor leadership. We are under the impression that if we vote a Republican, that is what makes us Christians. That is far from the truth. And it's about time that we, the young ones, know this. So we look at what the person is saying and their actions so that we don't follow blindly and vote blindly. And that is what is killing us and is destroying us, because when they get to power, it's all about their personal agendas and they don't care what anybody says. And today, if you go online with everything that is going on, you will see top Republicans who are denouncing the actions of President Trump because they've realized that it is not Christian, it does not have Christian values, and it's all self-fulfilling. And I think as we are talking about this, we need to bring this in light so that people know where they stand when we go to the voting booth. Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you for your thoughts there. Dr. Berrimer, you want to chime in real quick on that before we take our next guest? Just briefly.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaum. Interesting listening to the views being expressed. I have some views, and I believe that one of the things I want to encourage all of us is that let's understand that our opinions are not the only way. Let's accept that there are people with varying opinions. And I will start off, one of the young ladies, they speak eloquently about how systemically communities are being set up to fail.
Mm-hmm.
She talked about abortions being cited in those communities. She talked about businesses from those communities struggling to get loans to survive. And I believe that in thinking about this issue, that is my deepest concern, that if we're going to make change, it starts from the home. It starts from the home, how as parents, we are raising kids to respond to this society. Then it moves to how we influence our environment. And if we don't solve that, no matter what we do, whether angry, happy, sad, nothing is going to change. And I also want to extend that as someone who was very interested in politics, I want to let people know that placing your hope in a political leader is one of the most futile things you can ever do. They will come to the church and talk to us, tell us what we want to hear. You can bring all the mayors, they will tell you what you want to hear. Doesn't mean they care about you. And I want to put this scenario. Maybe we've forgotten Jesus lived under the oppression of the Roman Empire. Jesus lived in Palestine and it was occupied land. But he knew that the solution was the power of the gospel. And I believe that's what is going on. Our primary goal is to understand that our master, the boss we follow, the owner of the church, lived under oppression. The Roman Empire was one of the worst empires ever to possess the Palestinian lands. But Jesus did not focus his attention in the political game. Rather, that the change is in the power of the gospel. And that is what I want to tell all the young people. The church will forever use the gospel as a means to cause change in the society. We cannot blindly get involved in political activism. It may be disappointing to some people, but I think we must tell them the truth. I don't think it's right for the church to be donating money to any group, be it a Black activist group, be it whatever activist group. Our machine, our influence is in the power of the gospel. And if we lose focus of that, we will be deceived. Because, Doc, I'll quote a verse and I'll end. When we read, one of the verse I want to quote is in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. I'm sorry, Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. It says that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? If we change every race in America and make it black, there will be wickedness. There will be social injustice. There will be pain in the society. So if we think a politician will solve the heart issue, we may be deceiving ourselves. It is the power of the gospel. And the last thing I would want to tell the young people, I came to this country at the age of 28. I was old, I knew my way about. For you to even think that your parents don't experience racism means that you don't know what they also go through. Talk to your mothers, talk to your fathers who are cab drivers and see how they are disrespected. Talk to your mothers who are CNAs and see how nobody even cares for them. They also have their issue. But the division is that we think that we understand the society better. We think that they don't know what we are going through. But if we can all go to the table and share. I come from work, I ask my kids, how was your day at school? And when they share their experience, I bring mine too. As a medical practitioner, I've had people question me, are you the one going to do the surgery? So for you to think that it's only the young in college who are going through that, is why we are still struggling to unite, why we are still struggling to have a united voice. But I believe that the church should focus on the gospel. The focus of the church is the gospel. Add any other thing, we are deviating from the pathways of Jesus, and that will be disastrous.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much for that great perspective of where the church's mandate is. And I think we might as well do well to follow that amongst other things that we've discussed. All right, I think we had M on.
Yes.
Okay, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. There's been a few things that's been a little bit heavy on my heart as I've been on this call. And I'll first piggyback off on what our doctor just said, which is the fact that our parents experience racism. They absolutely do. I am a first generation born of a single mom here, Ghanaian. And I have absolutely seen the pain and the situations that my mother has gone through and the things that she has endured for me to have the life that I have. And I'm forever grateful. However, I absolutely believe that a distinction needs to be made that whether they did it out of fear or just not knowing, a lot of our parents have accepted the racism that they went through. And in accepting it, they believe I'm here for my child. I'm here to do the best that I can because I have come from Ghana. I have done all that I could do to bring my child here. And the next thing I can do is to let, my child be the best that they can be. So understand that at that point, there is a division. So it is not an issue of whether or not some of our parents have not experienced racism. It is about their ideal of what they have decided to do about it, which is why a lot of us young people are struggling with even having basic conversations with our parents. They're like, well, racism's there, but you go to work, you have a job, what's the matter? You're fine. And it's like, but I'm not fine inside. You know, I'm not even going to start the conversation about, you know, culturally and religiously about how we are not really working on our emotional health, because that's what's coming at this point. There are a lot of us who are struggling emotionally. Absolutely. And we have never properly, many of us, learned how to deal with that. We're literally seeing people who look just like us dying. That is traumatic. It's a very, very traumatic thing. One thing I really wanted to say is that I feel like, unfortunately, many times our perspective on various minority groups and or whites in this case is based off of our personal experience. I had the privilege of living in Ghana for about 8 years of my life, but I also had the privilege, I would say, of understanding what racism looks like firsthand as a person who went to school here in the States. It is not the same. The racism that I endured as a child from middle school to high school is absolutely not the same as those who came here from Ghana in their either early 20s or late 20s. Facts are facts. It's not the same. A lot of them are coming, you know, rightfully slow from a very blessed and focused place. They saw their struggles in Ghana and they're like, I'm in America. I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to do what I need to do. As a person who was here in the US when I was 8 years old, I don't have that privilege. I don't have that privilege to say that, oh, I'm, you know, racists who are yelling at me, who are cursing at me, who are, you know, making fun of me. So there are actually Ghanaian children who have endured these, and they have a very different perspective than a lot of our parents. So I hear what a lot of our leaders here are saying. I appreciate the forum. I absolutely do. But understand that sometimes it's not just as simple as being a good girl and going to school and getting good grades. Because your name, yes, there are some Kofis that are great, and Kofi Annan was amazing, but there are some people who don't know the name Kofi. I was in an interview at my job. I'm an auditor at a very large bank. I was in an interview. We had a Nigerian man come. I fought for this man so hard. He worked, all his work experience was from Nigeria, but he had it. He had the ethics. He had the knowledge. I saw it. We didn't hire him. It literally broke me. And honestly, as I'm speaking now, I didn't even realize how much it broke me until this moment. Those are things that we will continue to endure, whether or not we're good or not. That's why we need to tackle these things. I don't know what the overall larger church role is going to be to address this, but we need to address it. We need to address it because our children are suffering. Our children are suffering. I'm blessed. Like I said, it was traumatic when I went through it, but I can get my children to go through it as I get older. So I understand what you guys are saying, and absolutely keep preaching that we as Christians need to be the best example of Christianity that we can be. But understand that it's not just as simple as we're going to leave this conversation and go be good people. Just because I'm good is not going to stop a cop from pulling me over on the street. They don't see the intelligent person with a bachelor's, with a master's, making 6 figures. They don't see that. They see a Black person. They see a Black woman. And we need to say that you can't just tell somebody that, oh, well, just be good and don't worry, you're not going to endure that. So I want to absolutely give others a chance to speak because this is getting a little bit later. But like I said, I do want to say that I appreciate it, but we have a lot of work to do.
Hey, God bless you, Eminem. I feel that pain, sister. I definitely am with you on that. I remember when I was my freshman years, my middle name is Archery. And every teacher that came to the class just butchered that name like no other. And so I just saved them the trouble. I said, you know what, forget about the middle name. Just go Badu, and that should be fine for me. So I completely understand what you're saying. But we sense a lot of the pain and the hurt in your voice, and think many of us that are on the line are feeling the same way. I want to take this opportunity to say that by God's grace, the church has a counseling ministry, so to speak. And we have all the way to the district level with representatives and so on and so forth. So I think this is not a forum to do that, but please check our PENSA website, Facebook account and all that. Pastor Mike and the team would do well to post all the information there. Weekly, they do also have programs on COP radio. And I think today, ironically, they were talking about depression. And I think you're absolutely right. The church needs to now focus and play a major role in curbing the hurt and the pain that all of us are going through, not just even the young folks, every Black person in this country, especially in times and seasons like this. So God bless you for sharing, and we hear you. We definitely hear you. All right.
Next on the list is Stephanie Akoto Bamfo. We encourage you all to keep your comments and everything 1 to 2 minutes so we can get through this long list. Thank you.
Stephanie, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. And I'm thankful for the church for allowing us to speak on this very important issue. I just wanted to say that I think it's important that when we have these platforms, we not only speak to how we feel in our questions, but we also speak to a course of action after the conversation. So that's something that matters a lot to me, and I think we should also discuss. And I just have a simple idea. I think that it would be amazing if the church would commit to creating a task force that was voluntary and optional for students that want to contribute, for professionals that want to contribute to fighting social injustices from a Christian front. I mean, I can speak for myself as a politics major. I'm in these classrooms, I have these conversations, and I a lot of us have been congressional interns, whatever it may be. So we know the system and we know how these people work and how to have these conversations, but they lack Christ and empathy in these rooms. So if we could just have a few people beyond, going by yourself to your state house, if you know you have a whole team behind you, if you know you have a whole team going to DC with you, wherever it may be, and is praying with you and is praying before you walk into every meeting, it makes the impact even more powerful and resonate within our church. So that's all I want to say is I think that it would be powerful and beautiful if the church would create a task force that mixed everything that we've spoken about together, that prayed, that sought direction from leadership, that sought positions in schools, that sought positions in city councils, state councils, whatever it may be. The whole point being to make a difference. So that the conversation should not end here. I think it's really important that we listen to narratives and we understand how intersectionality affects everyone's story on this line today. But beyond that, allow your intersectionality to be a proponent of you making change beyond the church.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie, for that great contribution. I think we definitely have taken note of that, and our fathers are listening to us as well. And I'm sure they'll be able to look into all these great suggestions that are coming so we can all forge forward towards a better solution to fix this problem. All right.
Everybody, can I say something?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to thank all our young men and women who have taken the time to come to the line. I would want to suggest and also plead with leadership, if it's possible, for us to have a mirror image. I know I mentioned it at one of our forums the past, that the COP love that we have, if it's possible for us to have a mirror image of that in the men's section for our young men to have that room to communicate with one another, with leadership, to know even how to respond when they are stopped by the police. That's number one. How to even carry themselves around. Because by and large, sometimes people also judge us by the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we dress, and how we even, the air around us, how we carry ourselves. Mm-hmm. I know Apostle had mentioned that when you're going out and you dress in a different way, sometimes they don't even look at the way you dress, but even the way you respond could have something to do with how they treat you. There is no excuse for what happened to our brother Floyd and other ones. We sympathize with the family, and all of us are hurt, deeply hurt, for what had happened to them. That can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to my son. But we also have to do our part in terms of coming together and knowing some of the things that we want to do to avoid some of these things moving forward from happening to us. The other thing I want us to also take a look at is that when we see something wrong, we should speak up.
Yep. Can you please unmute Mrs. Ayi for me? I think she got muted by accident. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was saying, even if one of the 3 other policemen has said, stop, that made a huge difference.
That's right.
Probably we may have had our brother with us today. So when we see something wrong, all of us should speak up. When we identify something that is happening to our brother, it is happening to us, we should speak up. Whether it's inside the church or outside the church, if something is wrong, we have the Spirit of God in us that prompts us that something is wrong. Let us speak up. Besides voting, we are encouraging our leaders that we have a big forum where all our young men, besides Pensa Youth and Pensa Group, that all the men would also have a father figure who would be training them. A lot of people are in our fatherly roles right now who were also born here, who have gone through the birth of racism and also lived through it. And they have a lot of rich experiences that they can help us, modify our lives and also help bring the change. So that is one thing. And I also encourage our young men and women that in your little small groups at school, at church, try and bring 2, 3, 5, 10 people together to form groups that will foster change. There is power in numbers. So anything that you will do will bring a change, if not in your lifetime, in the lifetime of your children or grandchildren. But that I will take today will reflect on our tomorrow. So I have to do my part. Even if I don't see any change right now, at least in my grandchildren's age, they would see something, and I'll be proud of myself that I took the first step, even if it's just writing a letter to the mayor or making sure I vote or encouraging someone to go to the pool to vote. Every little thing that I have to do to bring a change, I'm encouraging all of us to be in this together. Let us cry together, let us vote together, let us rise up together for one cause. The prayer, let us move. This is faith with action. We are praying, we are fasting, but we want to move our legs. We want to move our pen. We want to move every single opportunity that God gives us in this country. We want to use that platform to bring a change in our today and in our tomorrow. Thank you.
Could I please add to what she's saying? I'm probably down the line, but I feel
yeah, just hold 1 sec for me, if you don't mind. Don't go anywhere. Just hold 1 sec for me. I'm looking at the time here, Pastor Mike. We are heading towards the top of the hour, 12 midnight, 11:43 as we speak. And so is it okay if we push it to 12 then?
Yeah, so we should be taking our last comments from panelists and all that.
Okay. All right. Bro, you can go ahead, please.
All right. So the side with what Mrs. Ayu was saying, when you're speaking, even as my mom would say, and she always, so like as much as you want to like speak with emotion, as much as you want to really voice how you're feeling, remember that you can voice without using cuss words. You can voice without preaching or speaking in an angry tone, because you have to remember that if someone's ignorant, they're already in a way not listening to you. So for you to attack them will make them shut off completely. You have to speak in a like a kind manner that still like gets the message across, but not too passively to where they're like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't really seem to be something that's important to this person. For example, there was even a classmate I went to school with. I actually didn't know she sided with basically the all lives matter thing. And I clearly stated to her that, hey, like what you're saying, it's technically an insult to the Black Lives Matter thing. And she didn't understand that because in her statement, she said, Black Lives Matter, but so do all lives. And I was like, at the end of the day, we're speaking of something that's current, not saying that your life doesn't matter, but saying that Black lives have not mattered because of the systemic racism that continues to happen. Not even saying like, you know, the N-word to people, all that, but even the fact that the government is set up in a way that Black people can't like really be successful, and everything's basically like against them. And so I think like even to be able to just like, you know, speak kindly and remember like, you know, like what you're putting there is really going to be there like permanently. Like especially to my people who want to be in the medical field as I do, or even law firm, whatever you're doing, something very professional on a high level. Remember that what you're putting now may be out of emotion, out of anger, what it may be, but 5 years down the road, can they look at your social media? Can they look at your page and say that, yeah, you spoke for racism, or you spoke against, you spoke against racism, or you spoke for Black Lives Matter, but did you speak it in a manner that was peaceful, in a manner that didn't show that you have some form of hate against people? Because they'll look at that to pick people who will join their companies and join their businesses. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you so much here. I think I'm looking at the time here, and we may be starting to wrap up. And please forgive us. We know there are so many important questions that we could have tackled. I'm already seeing a part 2 request, and so we'll be talking to our fathers to see if that would be something that we can pull off. So please know that we are here. We want to get to the bottom of this. Whichever way we can, you know, work collaboratively to find a lasting solution. That's what we're here for. And so at this point, I just want my panelists to get themselves ready, even as we give our last remark before we close. Now, the question for the last remark is, what is the way forward from here? We've had these great conversations. Our kids, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers have poured out their heart. We are all witnesses to the raw emotions and pain and hurt that they're going through.
Good
Our
question.
last comment, what is the way forward from here as a church, as a people, as a family? And so we would want to start, because of our time, if we can limit it to a minute, tops 2 minutes. Bridget, if you want to go first, and then we'll go all the way, and our father, Ofori, would wrap up for us at that point. So Bridget, please, quickly.
Yes, thank you. So in terms of the anger, I just wanted to quickly speak on that. I completely get it. Especially this week, I was very frustrated seeing a lot of these new things coming out, the videos, everything that was going out there. It becomes very frustrating, especially as a young person, because you want to do way more than what's like what we see, or you want to figure out a way to just fix the world, because there's so much going on. And I think the way forward is to understand that the emotions are going to be there, to understand that we are going to be frustrated, to understand that we are going to have breakdowns in terms of what we're seeing right now, because it gets too much for a human being to see another person dying. So I would like to say that for my age group, or the social media era, we need to figure out a way to like our brother was saying, speak out without having to put curse words, without having to speak against other people, because at the end of the day, we are Christ-minded, we are heaven-bound, and that is our goal, regardless of whatever is going on in this world. We're passing through, and at the end of the day, we will give our account to God. So if we're on social media and we're talking, we're going to have to be able to say certain things, but still have it be noble, still have it be pleasing, still be salted, seasoned with salt. So just be able to communicate your emotions. Our church is here for us. They've made it clear, especially with this platform, that they want to hear us, they want to listen to us. So being able to properly address these issues, properly come to our fathers, mothers, our aunts, people of our age, and be able to eloquently speak, I think that would help, at least for those of us that are on social media. Thank you.
Wonderful. God bless you so much, Bridget. Mrs. Bonsu, please.
Okay, thank you for this question. So we've touched on a lot of things so far, and I just wanted to say that it's important to note that within our own communities, we have a lot of division, right? So a lot of people right now are talking about, the issues between African Americans and how we treated each other, the Africans, and vice versa. And what we need to understand is that there is a lot of Black trauma going on. There's a lot of Black fathers missing in the households of some of these African American families. So the family structure has already been ruined. So it's important to us as a community to come together unified, but also get to understand each other's point of view and to know that we have a lot of loving that we need and understanding that we need to start having for one another so that we can move towards changing the system. But it starts at home and it starts with your family. So learn and educate yourself on the history of this country with African Americans. Learn and educate yourself so that we can empower one another so we're not divided as a youth and as a people.
Wonderful, wonderful. Love starts from us. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mrs. Bonsu. Attorney Oru, please.
I think we've spent quite a bit of time, I think, and we've just merely scratched the surface of conversation. There's so much to say, and there's so much that people are still feeling. But I think one of the things that we started to talk about that I think bears saying, and our mother shared earlier, was the role of mentorship and support, and Mrs. Bonsu just kind of mentioned that as well, right?
That's right.
So there's this idea that with a lot of things, there's a place to be able to carry people along with you in your journey. I think Pastor Berima talked about being the only person in the room that looks like yourself, and how that affects the way that you see yourself, the way that you view things around you. I think those of us who find ourselves as the onlys in our respective professions or wherever it is that we find ourselves, it's our job to carry other people and create opportunities for others that look like us as well. Because in that you're creating and you're fostering mentorships, you're fostering relationships, you're also building and sowing into people. And I think that that's absolutely critical when we're talking about solutions and things that we can do to kind of move the conversation forward. I think another thing that we've obviously talked about is that no matter how much we spend talking about situations and issues, we're not going to solve all the problems today, so that the conversation continues to go on, and that there is room for all different kinds of responses that we can have. I think that as we continue to evaluate and think about what our reaction should be and how we should respond in situations, I think the condition of our heart matters. Your motive, the Bible talks about that man might look at outward appearance, but God is really looking at your heart. And so why are you joining in that protest? Why are you doing XYZ? Why are you clamoring for this? And I think we need to check and weigh our hearts against what the word of God is and against what standard for society is, and then model and pattern our lives after that. So I would say, your motive counts, and obviously we talked about love and the love of Christ, but really the condition of your heart flows out of and affects everything else that you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Attorney Oru. All right. And we go to Mrs. Ayi. And I think the first group just got the kindness of me. They got 2 minutes each. If we can keep it within a minute, that would be wonderful. Mrs. Ayi, just a final comment, way forward. All right, can somebody unmute her for me? For whatever reason, she's still muted. Okay, you're good now.
Okay, so what I would say is that I want us to carry home this sentence. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. And when the lawyer says that, who is my neighbor? He gave the story of the Good Samaritan. The other thing that we also want to keep at the back of our minds is that when we get to the gates of heaven, the greetings that we are expecting from God is good and faithful servant. When I was hungry, you fed me. Was naked, you clothed me.
That's right.
Be my brother's keeper. What should I do? We need to learn the laws of the land. We don't have to be lawyers to know the laws of the land.
Yeah.
Let's identify ourselves with what our brothers and sisters of this land have gone through. That will give us a better understanding of where we are right now and our way forward. Our brother's keeper, let us get involved as mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, and our daughters. Let's know what is going on and understand it from the very grounds. And then we'll be able to fly with all the team. This is us, it's not them. It's we and all of us together. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful, Mrs. Ayi. All right. Lawyer Chris, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Just three quick things. One, we know the role that the law has played in all this situation, and so let's take advantage of the law. Let's need their help when we find ourselves in these kind of situations, and let's look beyond the criminal arena. It happens everywhere, and so let's try to seek legal help anytime we find ourselves in that situation. Two, let's seek knowledge. As our mom said, let's seek information. We need that. And you don't have to be a lawyer to know the laws. Go for information. And three, when we are going for information, let's not go look afar. I mean, right at our noses, there are information out there. We have COP radio, so many programs run out there telling us about how to do stuff. Let's take advantage of these resources we have. As we add more, I believe that we will get to a better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawyer Chris. All right, Elder Kofi, final thoughts, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a great discussion. It has taken me back to the days in undergrad when we gathered and had conversations to kind of get through these issues. And I think we need to keep the conversation going.
That's right.
It needs to be organized at various levels. Pensa locals need to have this conversation. We need to do it and invite our white brothers in, because sometimes I feel like even when they give us an olive branch for a conversation, because they don't have the right words, they may come out the wrong way.
That's right.
But it may have been done with a right, maybe godly heart to want to really understand. Let us take those advantages and educate. Let us share our stories. I think when it comes to our parents, I was telling somebody earlier today that our parents, some of them marched in Ghana in a protest movement called Kumi Preko, right? And they marched to make a difference in Ghana's democracy, but they can't understand why we are inclined to do the same thing here to better our futures for our children here.
Right.
And so we need to have that dialogue, finding ways to relate with them. And then I can't wrap up without mentioning that as the coordinator for PPN, the Pentecost Professional Network in the USA, I see this as another opportunity for us. We keep talking about political activism and engagement and mentorship. Really feel a strong burden to kind of reinvigorate the various professional groups we have.
That's right. That's right.
Make sure that it gets down to the ground, that even within those professional groups, we can have solidarity groups so that we can understand, how do you deal with this type of microaggressions if you're a doctor? How do you deal with this type of microaggression in the professional environment? I think these are things that we need to talk about and then equip ourselves with encouragement from the scriptures to be able to help us to overcome it. And I really want to mentor somebody who wants to run for political office.
Yes.
I am passionate about this. And I want somebody who is keen to do it. And I'm sure I can get others to help them build a campaign. So if you have that calling on your life, reach out to us and we'll find a way to help you develop it. God richly bless all of us for a great evening.
Wonderful. Elder, just so you know, somebody was just rooting for you to run for president. So
it's too late for me.
I had quite a lot of people kind of rooting out for you. So. All right. Thank you so much for your final thoughts there. All right, Pastor Mike, I want you to go and then Apostle will finish it and you will come back and then let us know the final way forward. But if you can please chime in real quick before Apostle takes the last word.
Okay. Well, we want to say a big God bless you to the team, Pastor Carl. A great job moderating. A few quick comments to our young ones and to our Pensa youth and Pensa folks. We have heard you. Your pain, your concerns, you've tabled it on the table, and we have heard you. We share in all of these pain that you are expressing. In fact, I watched that video. I couldn't sleep all night with my wife. Heartbreaking to begin to realize that to grow up Black in America is beginning to seem like a death trap. But that is what we are all speaking up against. And the Bible gives us the permission to speak up against these kinds of things. Today's forum has given us opportunity to express our thoughts and dialogue and talk of different ways that we could get engaged. My prayer is that we will not forget these expressions, that this dialogue will continue both at the local level, at the district level, at the regional levels. We will keep doing this because our fathers support this effort. I also want to say that we hear you, that the good news of the gospel is not only about praying. It's not only about telling somebody that Jesus saves you. If somebody is hungry and the person needs food to eat, you need to provide food for the person. Then the person will be strong and happy enough to hear the good news that we have. And so in as much as our primary goal is to preach the gospel, we also want to pay attention to the other ills of society. We thank God for our 5-year vision of the church. We are building prisons in Ghana, and the church is getting involved in several things. We're talking about engaging our communities. In the US, we have PENSOS. PENSOS is doing a fabulous job, reaching out and providing for the needs of those who are in shelter and those who are homeless. We want to keep doing things like that. We want to get involved in the culture. And when I visited the mayor, the first thing I said was not God loves you. I didn't go there to primarily begin to preach to him. I went to establish relationship. After the relationship was established, he then came to church later on and then heard the word of God. And so we have a primary duty to preach the gospel, but we are also going to make sure that we are paying attention to our environment and we are creating opportunities that will enable us even preach better. Lastly, I'll say that the task force that the suggestion came, there are things like that underway. The church is working very hard to set up several groups, committees that will help us engage the community. In fact, in the vision of the church, the urban ministry is a very important piece of it. So all of that is in the work. And those of us that are asking to join these groups, we're going to give you those opportunities to come on board and let's work together. You are young, you are strong. You are engaged in the community. We need you. We want to work with you. Through you, we can possess the nations. We have a book coming out very shortly that is going to help immigrant parents know how to communicate better with their second and third, generation kids in America, because we see that communication needs to happen in a very fruitful and very cordial way in order for us to have healthy families that will be loving God, serving God, and that our young people will be better trained and equipped to survive the ills of this nation. Finally, the church is coming up with so many other things that I wanted to mention. Just one very, very quickly. I think I'll bring that up later when I give the closing remarks. But we want to appreciate you all, and let's keep the communication and the dialogue going on. Amen.
Wonderful. God bless you, Pastor Mike. I almost forgot about the doctor from the beautiful island of Hawaii. I completely forgot. Please, Dr. Berima, your final thoughts before Apostle takes over, please.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I think what I wanted to say was said by in that we should check our heart, because if we are not careful in pursuit of this agenda, feel ourselves with hate. We'll fill ourselves with division. We should ensure that our heart is in the right place. And I also want to extend the same statement I made earlier, that if we have challenges, if these things are hurting deeper and deeper, we seek help. Resolving issues through emotional pain can set you to either overreact or choose the wrong way. That is why I think all our pastors are ever ready to talk, engage, and ensure that we meet the needs of our young ones, whether even elderly people. If you have any emotional challenges with respect to this, seek help. But my last but one point is, we should ensure that in pursuing this agenda, we don't make the image of the church into where we are coming from. Everybody who comes into our midst should feel loved, should feel welcome, irrespective of where they're coming from. And as I said, we may have a lot to do, but the focus of the church still remains the gospel of Christ, which has the power to transform any society. Thank you, and I really appreciate the national head as well as the PentMedia leadership for this invitation.
Wonderful. God bless you so much, Doc. All right. Apostle, we want you to take us home before Pastor Mike closes us. So, Apostle Ofori, please, your final remarks. Yeah, I think you are muted.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Perfect.
On behalf of the National Head, Apostle Michael Ajimamuako, and the National Executive Council, I want to thank the panel first, the youth, for your ideas and contribution. This is the beginning of a journey, and I think we have heard you loud and clear. And the National Head one, let me assure the youth that he will do whatever necessary to help this generation to let you have a better life than we did. And therefore, we want to assure you that even now, there are a lot of resources that you can make use in terms of the in-house resources. There's a lot of things bubbling up in you, anger, frustration. Please reach out to our counseling unit. And the leadership also, the PentMedia leadership, the national leadership, we are all here to help you. And I want to say that carry yourself with confidence. Whenever you go out, comport yourself, cooperate with the law enforcement authorities. Whenever you are stopped or you are confronted, walk in wisdom. Use a lot of wisdom. Every day, pray for wisdom. Because with wisdom, you can navigate through these complex life issues and challenges. And I want to let us know that we are Christians. We still believe in the weapon of prayer. Let us pray for peace and healing of the land of USA. Let us be agent of peace and an agent of change wherever we find ourselves. Let us be the salt and the light of the world that Jesus Christ wants us to be. Once again, thank you, and God bless you, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, Apostle, for coming and hearing our pain and cry and giving us these words of comfort. Definitely please extend our regards to Papa, the national head, for making you come to represent the executives. So Pastor Mike, you may want to take the last word, but we just want to let you know that tomorrow we wanted to tackle the legal issues a little bit more. What do you do if you get pulled by a cop, and what are your rights, and so on and so forth. But by God's grace, tomorrow on COP Radio, there 4 p.m. Legal Matters is coming on at 4 p.m. on COP Radio. Dr. Chris and his group will be on there talking about all these legal issues. So tune in and ask all the questions that you have. Excuse me. And I'm sure they'll be very happy to help you in all those legal issues. So once again, God bless all of you, especially all of you that were able to join us. We truly apologize that we couldn't go through all your questions that were coming in. There were so many of them. We tried the best we can, but as I said, we already have a request for part 2. We will relay that message to our father, national head, and see if that's going to be possible. I also want to thank all the panelists for your great work and contribution. We pray that whatever you have expended in this activity, God will replenish it in abundance. And we pray for more grace upon your life. So God bless you all. I just want to hand over back to Pastor Mike, even as he closes us.
Thank you very much, Pastor Dr. Carl, for the great moderation tonight. I think Apostle gave us the final words. I will just want to stand on behalf of the Youth and Pensa Ministry to say a big thank you to the National Head of Church of Pentecost USA, Apostle Michael Ajimanamwakon. We want to thank our dear National Secretary again, Pastor Apostle John Ofori, and the entire executive for taking time to dialogue with us and to listen to the burdens of the young people of our church. We say thank you. We are very grateful. We are looking forward to more of these dialogues. And we know that your doors are always open. We will keep knocking on the door. We will keep coming. We appreciate you, your love, your guidance, and everything that you continue to do with us, for us. We promise that we're going to keep flying along with the vision of the church to engage the community, to engage the cities, to engage the nations. We will not sit within the church building alone. We will engage using all the resources at our disposal to ensure that the vision of spreading this good news gets accomplished. We look forward to the next session. And again, thank you all for joining us tonight. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, I have one announcement to make quickly. Yeah, the national head has asked me to remind you that starting from Friday, June 5th through Sunday, June 7th, we're going to have the National and Fasting Day for God's peace and protection over the land. So please don't forget, we'll be sending more information out. The National Fasting and Prayer for peace and protection of the land. God bless you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Papa. I almost forgot the media team working from behind the scenes. We want to thank you for all your efforts. God richly bless you as well. Pastor Mike, if you don't mind, then we would ask Apostle to just bless us with a benediction, if that's okay.
That's perfect.
All right.
All right. Shall we receive the benediction? Now may the awesome and the great God, the God who is able to do more than we think or we ask, may he bless you tonight. May he give you wisdom, fresh oil, and fresh grace. Even as we are about to retire to bed, may he visit us tonight and cause us to enjoy our sleep. May he open the windows of heaven and pour on us the dew of heaven. May he refresh us tonight. And may he smile upon our life and be gracious unto us. And may he lift his holy countenance upon us and grant us his perfect peace from now until Christ Jesus appears in glory. Amen.
Amen. All right. Good morning, everybody. Go get some rest.
God bless you. Thank you all. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
I didn't know we were going to greet good morning.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Have a pleasant night, everybody. Sleep well.
Hi, Togo. Good night.
Night.
Hey, hi, Apostle.
Good morning and good night. Good morning and good night.